So today I have got for you a real treat in the form of this singularly revolting item, an ox tongue. Yeah, it is viscerally disgusting to behold, but I have to tell you, it is the most delicious eating you can possibly imagine. It is one of the tastiest bits of meat on the whole animal, and you're in for a real treat if you haven't had this before. I'm going to show you how to cook this 3 ways. A lot of us in this space are wrestling with cooking for families where different members of the family or the community are eating differently. So what might we have? We might have someone with autoimmune disease eating carnivore. They might be married to somebody who's either got type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, trying to lose a bit of weight, that sort of thing. They might be eating low carb. And then we've got children who are still at school, operating within a sort of more standard framework, and obviously more tolerant of certain things than we are when we get into this kind of 30s and 40s and the problems start to crop up. That said, we certainly don't want to be feeding our children junk, and if we are going to give them slightly more sort of standard foods, we're going to make sure that those are the best quality they can be, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. So the first thing to do is to boil the tongue. I appreciate that I'm not making this sound any more delicious as I say that, but it will be amazing, I promise you. Okay, so here is a large pan of boiling water, and I'm going to put in quite a lot of salt. In fact, fistfuls of this salt. I'm going to aim to make this as salty as seawater. If you're not cooking for carnivores, you could quite easily put into this water the same sort of aromats that you might put into a bone broth. Let's say onion or shallot, let's say garlic, let's say vinegar, let's say bay leaves, peppercorns. Those kinds of things are going to make for a slight addition of flavour to that tongue. But it actually doesn't make a massive difference, and you shouldn't worry if you're just gonna do it in water with a little seasoning like this. Now, I'm gonna give this a quick stir, and then I'm gonna swipe my finger into the water. Now, obviously, be careful. I don't want anyone to get scalded, but you should be aware that you can just swipe your finger into boiling water like this and taste it without having too many problems. Now that's good, that is plenty salty enough. Make sure that if you've just put fistfuls of salt in, make sure that you don't use your salty hand to taste the water, because it will still have salt on. Use a clean finger, just give it a taste, and it wants to be sort of seawater-like. I mean, you don't want to be throwing up with the amount of salt in it, but it just needs to be nice and salty. So into that, we are going to put our tongue. Here it comes into the water. It's going to start to basically give up impurities that we're going to skim off the top, and we can see some starting to sort of float to the top now, and I'm just going to use the spoon and the bowl just to take these off the top like this. Look, it's just kind of like grubby looking stuff that floats to the top, and we're just gonna, in this first 10 minutes or so of boiling, we're just gonna skim. So this has given off most of its impurities now, and I'm gonna put the lid on. I'm gonna move it onto a really low heat and just let it simmer away for about 3 hours. So look, woo, steamy. It's like a spa day here. Okay, so let's take it out of here. Now, be careful, because what happens is under the skin, there are pools of hot water and hot fat. And sometimes if that spurts out and gets on you, then it can hurt. We're gonna need to peel it, but I'm gonna let it cool down a bit first, because otherwise it'd be really hard to handle. It'd be too hot to handle. I've got these nice mushrooms. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the ends off here, big knife, into reasonably thick slices. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my small knife and I'm just going to do a very gentle crisscross pattern across the outside. Don't cut the right way through it, just gently. What that's going to do when we cook that, it's going to give them a nice appearance, but it's also going to just let some of the butter and stuff get inside. Let's prep our Chinese leaf. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the end off. I've already peeled the outer layers, so these ones are inner layers. I'm just going to very gently take a few off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a couple of these and I'm going to take the thicker ends off and just halve them, because these ones are going to go on a slightly different dish to these ones. And now we can start to prep our little dressing. So it's basically a red wine vinaigrette, and we're going to start off by just chopping this onion, and I'm going to just take the end off. We're going to go down through the roots, peel the outside in a fan across like this. 3 fingers in a row, thumb behind, and we're just doing very finely chopped. I've got some parsley which I've washed. We just are going to take the tips of this. We don't need the stalks in there. We've got a garlic clove here which I'm going to crush. So the first thing to do is to put these onions into the bowl, and we are going to macerate them, which basically means we're going to use an acid to cook them. And the acid we are going to use is red wine vinegar. Put a little capful or 2 in. We can season those with some salt, a little bit of Dijon mustard. I like this one, the moutarde de maille, very nice French Dijon. We don't need a lot, okay, just a hint of this. But it's really, what we need is these acidic flavours to cut through the richness and the meatiness of the mushrooms and the tongue. Now we're going to add olive oil to this, but I'm not going to do it yet because I want these onions to sort of have this chance to kind of cook in here. So this is going to be my dressing, which is just going to be ready to be finished off. I've got some olive oil to go with that. In terms of my other ingredients, I've got my mushrooms, I've got my Chinese leaf, I've got a few little pickles here, which are going to be a nice little kind of garnishy thing. And I've got a piece of sourdough bread. Now, most of us in the low carb space, we don't eat bread, but other people do. If I'm going to give people bread, I give my daughter bread sometimes. I'll give her this kind of long fermented sourdough. It's made of proper flour. It has nothing nasty in it. It's not cheap processed wheat flour. It has no vegetable oils, etc., etc. So it's worth just being a bit flexible in order to take advantage of the community aspect of eating. We don't want the way that we eat to isolate us. Be flexible, but not with your own diet necessarily, but with other people. So now I think what we should do is peel this tongue. Peel the skin away. And you can see there's this oil pouring out. That can be quite hot. So just watch your fingers. This is why we've let it cool down a bit. Now, sometimes it just falls off really easily, and sometimes you have to help it along with a knife. Some bits may fall off easily, and some bits you may have to help along with a knife, but just peel it away. There we go. It's all coming away nicely. And what we can see under here is this beautiful, soft, tender, succulent meat. I'm going to slice these beautiful, thick slices. It smells absolutely divine. You wouldn't think it, but it does. I've got a non-stick pan, silicone spatula, big knob of butter, in it goes. Now that butter is nicely foaming. There we go. So let's lay our mushrooms in. And we want to control the heat a bit because butter will burn if it's allowed to get too hot. So I've turned it down now to sort of medium heat. Season, sea salt. Okay, let's see how they're looking. Now, mushrooms soak up butter in a heartbeat, so don't be surprised if you find yourself needing to add a little bit more. What they tend to do is soak it all up very quickly and then kind of give it back to you as they cook out. Just a little slug of olive oil. Now while our mushrooms are cooking over there, I'm going to finish off the dressing. Lovely parsley, garlic clove, some black pepper and olive oil. And what I'm going to do is just stir it with a spoon as I put that oil through it. So it's like a nice kind of sort of almost creamy appearance where the mustard and the oil sort of work together. If you're keto or you're low carb and you eat these kinds of things, have a little taste of it, just check it for acidity. I normally would, but I'm actually having a carnivore day today, so I'm not going to. But, you know, do have a little taste, just check it for acidity, check it for salt, check it for pepper, check those balances. If you need to add a little bit more vinegar, a little bit more mustard, or a little bit more oil, you know, do that. Just trust your judgment. So these are looking absolutely beautiful now. They're taking on some really nice colour. And we can see those little crisscross patterns we cut in them, just kind of allowing them to soak up all of this stuff. And just let them sit on the board here and calm down. Look, they've got such a lovely colour. Look at that beautiful colour they've got. Now, into this pan, straight away, I'm going to put this piece of bread straight into these juices. I'm going to turn it over a couple of times just to get it nicely coated, and I put it back on the heat. Just floor tile samples, and you just clean them off very well, you know, wash them like you would a plate, and then you can just put them on the table with all kinds of bits and bobs on it. It's just a cheap way to have a really nice big serving platter. Let's turn this. Look at that colour. Lovely sort of toast. It's soaking up the butter and the olive oil and the flavour of the mushrooms there. What we're going to do is we're going to pop this onto our tile here. I'm going to put the tongue on. I'm going to wash the pan because this has now had bread and mushrooms in it. We're going to be serving this tongue to people who might be carnivores, so they might not want that. So we're going to wash it off. Now into our pan, we're going to lay our pieces of tongue. They can just go into a completely dry pan. They're so fatty, in fact, that they will render their own cooking fat. We just lay them in like this. Absolutely beautiful. There we go. Popping in. Make space, you guys. Make space. Crowding the pan a tiny bit. It'll be alright. Now to season these a little bit with some salt. You don't need masses, we boiled it in brine, but it's nice to have just a little bit on the crust. Now, while that tongue is just cooking off over there, what we're going to do is just take some of these little pieces of Chinese leaf, and I'm just going to lay them on top of the toast like this. I'm going to lay these three in a little row. Just making lovely noises. Let's turn it. Look at that, crisp, golden on that side. Let's just have a look. Yeah. See, it just forms the most beautiful, sticky kind of caramelized crust straight away. It's really good. You don't need to add any fat. Look what it's doing. Just crazy. Over we go, and you in the corner. Not that there's really a corner in a round pan. On top of our toast, we're going to put a few of these little pieces of mushroom, like this. A couple then into here. A couple of these little pickles in here. They're going to have a little burst of acidity to them. Now let's see how things are going. I think that one could possibly have a tiny bit more on this side. Yeah, they're all looking amazingly good. And it's so sticky, look, they're sticking together even. That's kind of how it goes. It goes into this wonderful kind of gelatinous, beautiful sort of, I'm just going to turn them one more time back again, just because they seem to be colouring so nicely on that second side. Just a little bit more heat getting into the pan, that's what that is. And they form this crust. Absolutely glorious. Let's take the bigger ones for the carnivore portion, which is going to go here, like this. So now we have our carnivore portion, which is just purely the tongue. And then on top of the toast, we're going to put a couple of pieces like this. And then we're going to add into these little boats of Chinese leaf dressing over this one and over these ones. Standard on toast, sourdough toast. We've got keto in these little Chinese leaf boats with this dressing, and we've got just plain carnivore. Give it a go, take a picture, stick it on Instagram, tag me at RUSTON'S Boneyard, and I'd love to see what you're cooking. Have a good day.